Buongiorno, ecco, riprendiamo i nostri lavori, cambio di scena e di interlocutori. Io introduco i lavori della tavola rotonda che dedichiamo al tema della strategia europea per gli investimenti, il ruolo delle politiche regionali e settoriali, un tema che affrontiamo da diverse angolature, con riferimento al cosiddetto piano Juncker, di cui abbiamo già parlato. Allora, il problema fondamentale, da quello che poi abbiamo già ascoltato nelle relazioni di questa mattina, è da un lato il problema della bassa crescita in Europa e dall'altro quello del rischio ormai evidente della deflazione. Quindi ci sono due, fantasmi che si aggirano, e su questi dovremo ragionare quando parliamo del piano di investimenti. Abbiamo non moltissimo tempo perché c'è un'ora di ritardo, quindi io vorrei invitare i nostri relatori a contenere i loro interventi francamente in un massimo di 10 minuti, perché sennò andiamo molto oltre, darei subito la parola per la relazione introduttiva a Christian Buchmann, che è il presidente del Comitato delle Regioni dell'Unione Europea, e poi subito dopo la darei a Edoardo Reviglio, che è capo economista della Cassa, Depositi e Prestiti, che è incaricato della background presentation. Ok, sta arrivando Mr. Buchmann. Sì, Reviglio, ok. Ok, thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, eminent colleagues, dear friends, it's a great pleasure and an honor for me to have the opportunity to address the Rome Investment Forum today. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers for inviting me to take part in this all-important debate on the European investment strategy. Just a little over 1 year after the launch of the investment plan for Europe by EU Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, I see this is an important time. Not to talk about results or to draw conclusions, of course. It's still far too early for that, but an important time for nonetheless to take a moment to stop and look at what has been done, what remains to do, and most importantly, to check what we are heading in the right direction. And I want to be cautious here, but I believe we are. Before the investment plan, it had become clear that Europe was starting to emerge from one of its worst economic downturns in recent history, a crisis that had dire economic, social, and above all human consequences for many Europeans. But it was becoming clear as well that this recovery was, and in too many places still is, much too slow and much too weak. Boosting investment was seen rightly as one of the solutions, and as soon as the investment plan was launched, the cities and regions of Europe expressed their support for this initiative. One of the plan's strengths that we saw in the European Committee of the Regions was its twin focus, both on long-term infrastructure investments on the one hand and funding for SMEs and mid-caps companies on the other. Indeed, at the local level, these are the two sides of the same coin. What is the point of financing fast broadband or improved transport infrastructure if not to allow well-financed companies to take advantage of them to create jobs? 1 year on, it was important for me to be here today for this debate. Firstly, because I'm convinced that this topic of investment continues to be one of the defining questions for Europe's economy. And secondly, because in my capacity as the chair of the European Committee of the Regions Commission for Economic Policy, with one foot in Brussels and the other in my region of Styria in Austria, I see that local and regional authorities throughout Europe have a key role to play in answering that defining question. In fact, yesterday the members of the Commission for Economic Policy and myself agreed that the promotion of long-term investment at regional and local level had to be one of our key priorities for the coming year. The deep integration of Europe's economies with its many benefits should not let us forget the differences that exist at national level and even more so at regional and local level. We need European level strategies, of course, and it was mentioned today, and coordination, cooperation, exchange, and much more, but we must remember that in spite of everything that we do share, no two European regions and no two European cities are the same. This local and regional diversity and richness needs to be taken into account at the level of the EU in order for those necessary European strategies to make sense and eventually to succeed. This is true for many policy areas, for example, economic governance, which we were discussing yesterday at the Committee of the Regions, and it is true also for investment, which we are debating today. It is true for post-public investment, 60% of which is done by regions and cities in the European Union, and private investment, which is heavily determined by local and regional factors as well as constraints. I chaired an exchange of views yesterday in Brussels where we discussed promotional banks and their role for investment and growth. And what was very clear to me in the discussion with my colleagues of the Committee of the Regions was that great diversity of situations. Firstly, in terms of challenges and starting points, if you look at gross fixed capital formation as a share of GDP, which is a useful measure of investment, the differences between countries are important. But the differences at the regional level are even more startling. In some regions, and it was shown today, the figure is below 10%, while in others it is nearly 3 times as much, for example, 27% in Valle d'Aosta in Italy. At the same time, the differences between regions in their capacity to tackle these challenges are striking as well. In some regions and cities, there is high-level expertise, there is experience in working with services at the European Investment Bank, there is knowledge of how to use financial instruments, and some regions have their own promotional banks, for instance. In others, however, we see none of that. As a result, this question of capacity and thus of capacity building for local and regional authorities, including in relation to investment, has been highlighted as a concern in European semester documents in past years. It is an important issue for the Committee of the Regions, and indeed I believe that it is absolutely fundamental to work on it if we truly want to make investment work for Europe. What I would really like to emphasize today, however, is how important it is not to have a narrow view of the subject. If investment really is going to be the key to unlock a full return to growth, it has to be tackled from the different angles and integrated within a true overarching investment strategy. In this respect, I am very happy to see this multifaceted approach to investment in some of the latest work done at the EU level. In the annual growth survey, which it published just 2 weeks ago, the European Commission not only put relaunching investments at the heart of its analysis, it also looked much deeper into the challenges to investment in each member state. To do this, it had to look at public procurement, the insolvency framework, employment rules, taxation, education, and much more, because all of these factors come into play. I really welcome this excellent work, and I want to point out that the Committee of the Regions is playing its part too. Earlier this year, we worked with the OECD on a joint consultation, subnational governments on challenges to investment in infrastructure, which I think is fully complementary to the work done by the European Commission. Another piece of the puzzle in this overarching investment strategy is the Capital Market Union, for example, and that is true both from the perspective of business investment and infrastructure investment. Once completed, the CMU will allow companies to benefit from more integrated and more liquid capital markets, meaning opportunities for more access to funding and at more attractive conditions. At the same time, thanks to the new Solvency II rules, insurance and pension funds will have much better incentives to provide long-term finance to infrastructure projects, which was a real challenge up until now. One more piece of the investment puzzle, and one that is particularly important for local and regional authorities, is economic governance. The rules that are now in place to coordinate economic and fiscal policy are of course necessary in our economic and monetary union, but we must look at the impact they have on member states and also regions and cities' capacity to invest, especially at a difficult time like this one. At the level of the Committee of the Regions, we have welcomed the flexibility that has been recognized in the rules of stability and growth, backed as something necessary. The commitment made by President Juncker, for example, that contributions to the European Fund for Strategic Investments would be excluded from the calculation of deficit under the pact, was a step in the right direction. However, some protagonists think flexibility should even go further. It has been discussed if the same logic should be extended to all national and regional co-financing in the context of the European structural and investment funds. In any case, these are worthwhile investments. That's why it is being discussed to what extent this extra flexibility would allow member states, but also cities and regions to make the investments that are so badly needed to boost economic growth and job creation. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that the debate will be lively, well-informed and constructive, and as a result, I am hopeful that it can represent a real step forward. The challenge is far from an easy one, but with the involvement of all players and with all levels of governance working together, I am confident that we can achieve our common goal, to enable Europe to make today the investments that will deliver growth tomorrow. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much. Edoardo Reviglio per lo speech, eccolo.
Is on? Yes. Hello. Yes. Hello. Yes. I will say a few words on the Juncker plan, trying not to say things that have already been said. We were discussing with some friends last night on if the Juncker plan was going to be a success or not, and one of the two said, well, they're going to invest 300 billion in the next 3 years, and said, so that's already a good thing. It's very important that this 300 billion will be in excess of what they would have invested anyway, and they would, so, and you know what I mean. The Juncker plan, to me, and I've said this on another occasion, is more. It's not just a large guarantee facility or an extension of a EIB activity with special activities. The Juncker plan is a catalyzer, is the first step, has to be seen as a first step toward the creation of a single market for infrastructure and corporate support, to create in the medium long term an infrastructure union. So it is a strong catalyzer of national reforms to create more friendly environment for to attract investors. It has to be, and much of the action is already going on. And why do we need this? Because Europe, with the debt overhang and with the demographics perspectives and with the high social welfare expenditures, will not be able to put much money, direct money, taxpayer money in infrastructure. So we'll have to build up a very technically advanced model to attract long-term investors from the global markets, which are worth, we have assets worth about 100 trillion dollars, and invest today only 1%, and want to invest more. So let's see, the Juncker plan is concentrated on the two of the sectors of the European economy that needs more help, and this is infrastructure and SMEs. The Juncker plan and the capital market union, let me see how of course there are two parts, we said, two very important parts that have to work together. And I say I say a word that has been abused. We want to transform infrastructure in an asset class. because now it's an alternative class. That means that most of investors invest in unlisted equity, either directly in infrastructure funds or indirectly in the projects. To make it an asset class, we need to have a variety of financial instruments so that institutional investors can buy in and increase their quota of infrastructure investments. Let me say immediately that only 10% of all infrastructure financing is done with PFI or PPP. 90% is done half by taxpayer money and half by corporates. That means large utilities, high-tech companies, and small and medium utilities. So one way to support infrastructure is to support our corporates. Public utilities do much of the infrastructure investments in Europe, in most of other economies. If we go back to the PPP and PFI, then we need financial instruments. Which are the financial instruments of the capital market? Because so far they've been financed by banks. So one is securitization of project financing loans or project financing like loans. There is definitely a market, a potential market there. The problem is, one of the problems is recalibration of the accounting standards and prudential regulation, CRR, CRD4 for securitization and Solvency II. On this, the action plan and all the documents came with the action plan on 3rd September are moving in the right direction. But let's be clear, securitization is not going to take off in the European market until interest rates don't go up. Today, with such low interest rate and such huge liquidity, there is simply no convenience of bank to sell, to securitize all loans which have better margins, better profit, to substitute it with new loans. So we can create the right condition both for infrastructure, ABS for infrastructure, and ABS for SMEs. But until we don't get growth, and until we get some more inflation, until we don't get the right condition, banks are not going to securitize. And especially if we talk about STS, simple, transparent, and standardized, which means the best loans of the banks. So why the banks should give up their best loans for funding? There is liquidity, easy and cheap. Why should they do it to reduce capital absorption? Because they have to substitute it with another loan, which is probably will make less money for the bank, and the bank needs to make profits to put profits to return earnings to increase capital and reduce leverage. So, okay for securitization, but in the medium long term, I'm not so sure that it's going to happen in the time frame of the Juncker plan. Project bonds. Project bonds in the world, they're worth about 180 billion. 90% are issued by China. The US issues are about 3 billion, and I'm talking about project bond issued directly by an SPV that does the infrastructure, and about 4 billion in Europe thanks to the project bond initiative. 12 projects, very large. They're good, but they're not very liquid instruments. So it will take some time, and eventually they will be more placed into for very, very large projects. So, moving to alternative to an asset class is not going to be easy. Moving from financing infrastructure from banking systems to the capital market is not going to happen right away. Of course, we have to work to create the right conditions, but there are problems that I've spoken about already. SMEs. Again, SMEs need strong, large corporations. So to work on supporting large industry is probably the best way to support the SME systems. SMEs still depend on banking system. We are consolidating the sector, so we are pretty much breaking up the system of local banks, which were very good for SMEs. Securitization of SMEs loans have the same problems that I told you before. Venture capital is very good, of course. Private equity works, but we have 400 or 500 operations of venture capital per year in our country, and we have 250,000 SMEs that would need eventually equity. Very good guarantee schemes, very good. In Italy we have the Fondo Centrale di Garanzia. We can increase that with structural, with funds coming from structural funds, with money coming from structural funds, with trying to make it more of an instrument of political industrial policy, if you may. If we look at the United States, yes, it's true, they have a big problem in financing infrastructure. They do it with the capital markets. They have a municipal bond markets which is worth 3.7 billion, and on that the Obama plan launched 900 billion and 5 plus 100 billion in 2015, and in 2 years, from 2009 to 2011, they issued 200 billion of Build American bonds, which are project bond-like structures issued by municipalities and authorities, 200 billion. So it's a lot of money. And with that, they started financing schools, hospitals, streets, and public buildings, and all of these things. But they also have problems because their local authorities, and we know the case of California, is not in very good shape. So this debt is also off balance sheet. So the BABs, 200 billion to build infrastructure, are off balance sheet. They are not accounted in the debt. As much as in PPI and PFI in Europe, according to Eurostat, should not be considered off balance sheet. That's why we do. So here is another good question. I'll stop with that.
Yeah.
Last year, they want me to talk. Last year, we launched the topic of social infrastructure. I think it's very important. About 70% of all investment in public investment in infrastructure in Europe are made by local authorities, and they are medium and small public works. So they're very important. Hospitals, kindergartens, schools, and public buildings, etc., etc. How are we going to finance all this? We've been talking about PPI, PPP for now 20 years in Europe, and except for a few countries like the UK, Netherlands, and maybe Belgium, and a little bit France, very little has been financed in this way. Why should we finance public works with PPP? Well, when we can have a cost of money with long-term lending, which is much, much, much cheaper, because if we want to finance a PPP with an availability to toll, of course, this is going to cost 2, 3, 4, 5, how much more than the interest rate we pay on the loans. There's a big debate this. I hope this afternoon and tomorrow we'll talk about it more. My impression is that, of course, yes, we have to move and try to build a model which is a bit like the UK, where all of these projects can be standardized, but also this is not going to happen soon and quick. So we have to think about other ways to finance, to help local authorities to finance infrastructure at the local level. And one way is to privatize brownfield. And if you privatize brownfield, then you can free up debt on the local level, so they can do more long-term debts and build the local infrastructure they need. Because we need that this happen timely, because we cannot wait until this whole structure, which will eventually happen and will be an epochal change of financing infrastructure from the government to the institutional investors, will take probably much longer than the Juncker plan. Thank you very much.
Vi presento i relatori che con noi questa mattina parleranno dopo queste due relazioni introduttive del piano Juncker. Luca Lazzaroli, direttore generale della BEI, Laurent Zylberberg, che è il direttore per le relazioni istituzionali e gli affari europei della Cassa de Dépôts, Marcello Messori, professore di economia al Dipartimento di Scienze Politiche della LUIS, direttore della LUIS School of European Political Economy, Giorgio Chiarion Casoni, capo unità della Direzione Generale Affari Economici della Commissione Europea, e infine Carlotta De Franceschi, presidente di Action Institute. Vorrei dare subito la parola a Luca Lazzaroli con anzi un paio di questioni, 2 domande. Se è d'accordo con quanto affermava poc'anzi il dottor Reviglio a proposito del Juncker Plan come first step, cioè il primo passo, e che dunque va legato ovviamente anche alla Banking Union e alla Capital Market Union, e se ci aiuta un po' a capire qual è lo stato dell'arte al momento del piano Juncker, di cui noi abbiamo avuto molte informazioni un anno fa e dopodiché è un po', come dire, un oggetto misterioso, ne abbiamo perso le tracce, se ci aiuta a capire a che punto siamo. Grazie.
Buongiorno a tutti. I have the impression that a lot has already been said on the Juncker plan, and but just to address the question, is that really the what do we come from, and what is it that the Juncker plan, the VIB, which is associated to the Juncker plan, can do? I mean, the European plan for Europe was conceived at a point in time when Europe was after 7 years of recession, and with the awareness of many long-term challenges ahead of us. And when I say long-term challenges, I'm not referring to demographic changes. I'm referring to the fact that we have all realized that the crisis which we've all been going through wasn't cyclical, but it was structural. We've seen economic data, we've seen the status of the banks leveraging, we've seen the limitation of monetary policies, we've seen the constraints of fiscal stimulus, and so forth. So we've come from, and we still come from a period of time in which spending has been very low, in spite of a number of maneuvers performed by a policy level. So that's the genesis. I don't think that has changed very much. There are 3 components, as you can imagine, that are associated among themselves, and I think must be looked at one in conjunction with the other. One is the financial dimension of that, and that is the notion of financing additional 315 billion. So I'll come back to that in a second. But that goes hand in hand with the notion of reform and with the notion of trying to build a pipeline, and which is the third component, the notion of advisory, supporting, capacity building, and so forth. On the first one, and maybe I'll try to address your question. Now, 315 is nothing. When you compare the needs of Europe, 315 billions over a period of time of 3 years is really very little. So certainly this is the first step. And we were asked to assess what is the investment gap in Europe. We've done that a few years, in November of last year. We've come up with a number which was close to 1 trillion of extra investments on a yearly basis. How did we come to that number? We just looked at where we stood in terms of investment level before the crisis, 2008, and we've seen where we wanted to be in relation to the investments in some sectors, education and so forth, where we did had some reference investment rates, that had been the ones that governments had been committed to. So we come up with a number such as 700-800 billions of extra investments on a yearly basis. Clearly, we are far away from the 315. Still, why is it important with 315? It is important because, as far as the EIB is concerned, these are new investments. These are new projects. There's a clear commitment and mandate given to the bank. The bank is there to support additional investments on top of what the bank would do in any case, to the tune of 315 billion. What is that meaning? It's not meaning that the EIB will create on its own balance sheet new assets for 315, but it will generate new operations in the course of 3 years, around 45 billion of new generations, which will have a quality which will enable the crowding in of private co-investors. So and this is important, so it's new projects. These are projects which must be capable of bringing in new investors, and because of the guarantee that we benefit from, must be, in terms of products, must be funded with products which, as far as we are concerned, are in the high risk range of what we do. And that's really the challenge we are confronted with. Products are products we know already, and we can talk about investment funds, junior lending, quasi-equity, subordinated lending. It is about project finance where we can now come as senior lender or junior lender. So these are the products, but the scale of these operations that the EIB will be performing is much higher. We can afford that. We can afford looking at the transactions and the projects, even when they're risky, and assess them and finance them no matter what is the risk content. So that is the prerogative we're given, and that's what we're doing. As you know, we started already in January of this year, even before the regulation was approved by the Council. So we've been already piling up a number of projects. Some of them are being financed. It is, as of now, we think that by year end, I don't want to make any announcement, but there will be projects in the tune of 45, 50 billions worth of new investments, which will have enjoyed support and investment plan for Europe. But of course, it's work in progress. It's work in progress. It is an effort that will have to be measured in the space of 3 years. And it's something that we intend to do with operators on the ground. As I mentioned before, we're there to finance, but we do need also to work with a number of operators, banks, and national promotional banks, and CDC. And that's something we're doing. So for us, it means getting into new products, scaling up tremendously these new products, revising our credit risk policy guidelines, entering into new partnerships, developing platforms with which to work with the others. What can we do when we work with national promotional banks and commercial banks? We can do many things. We can co-invest. We can develop investment platforms. What is it? Investment platform. Essentially, this is funds where we funnel, we via the funds, we try and cover a wider number of operations that we could not otherwise reach. It is about, as I mentioned before, developing a range of quasi-equity, equity products that we're now looking at. So that's where we are. I think it's work in progress. It's a complex process, but we're very confident that this will yield its results. Now, as I mentioned before, it's not just about finance. I have to stress that. It's also about reforms. We can talk about many sectors. I have in mind the electricity sector. I suppose we will all agree, or at least most of us, that in some cases what's missing, it's not finance, it's certainty. And I'm looking at many countries in Europe, not just one in particular. What we need is certainty. And so that side is very important. And we're trying to work with authorities at the level of individual member states of Europe to address that kind of issues, because, as I've said, sometimes that's really what's missing. That's the missing link. A last word on advisory, because we all talk about financing new projects, but sometimes we forget about the necessity to support the pipeline. I very often go to meeting, and the typical reaction I hear from institutional investors is, we don't need cash, we need projects. We want pipeline of projects, that's what we want. It's true. It is a fact that, in many countries in particular, the real effort is an effort which has to be done at the level of generational projects. On that one, and I go to the third leg of the Juncker plan, that is the development of, as far as we are concerned, an advisory hub. It is an important initiative that has been developed. Of course, we're not the only player. We cannot address all problems. But as far as the EIB is concerned, It's a number that I rarely see mentioned, but we have some 250, 300 people which are fully devoted to the advisor, which is a lot. And we're joining forces there too with local partners, national promotional banks, because they're clearly, when it comes to origination in particular, we do need to join forces with local partners. And we have this, the case of an agreement we signed some years ago with Cassa, Depositi, Prestiti. This is an important agreement. We have worked together with NPBs across Europe in the context of a working group which was set up around a year ago, and with regular meetings which were meant to yield forms of cooperation, staff exchanges, new platforms, you know. And I think that is what we intend to pursue with all the various players. I think I just...
Yeah, okay, thanks. Ok. Maintenant, j'aimerais bien écouter les points de vue de M. Zylberberg sur il est juriste et sociologue de formation, c'est correct? Ok.
Thank you. I'm a lawyer and sociologist by formation, so that means that I do not know anything about economy, so I will speak about economy. Well, the question is, does the Juncker plan work? This is the basic question that we have to answer today, after 1 year. And the answer is yes, but, and I will focus on the but. But of course, that doesn't mean that I put aside everything which is working quite well. And I will try to be very, very, very brief. I think that we can do more with the national promotional banks and financial institutions. What are the NPBI? Basically, these are long-term investments, public, which have a lot of money ready to invest for the long term. And we are ready to work together. So the bets, what are they? The first one is, what is the impact of the Juncker plan on the daily life of our European citizens? And at the present moment, I think that impact is very small. It is small because we are coming back to the Helmut Schmidt theorem that the profit of today are the investment of tomorrow and the job of the day after tomorrow. But the issue for people is that they are looking for jobs today. So this is why the impact is quite small of the Juncker plan, and this is a big issue, I think. The other point regarding the daily life of our citizens is the fact that we are all speaking about flexibility. But in the meantime, we are considered, probably rightly, to be rigid about the constraints, about the fact that we need to be in the Maastricht Treaty and so on. So the people, the very people who are speaking about flexibility are the ones who are the most rigid. So we have no, and as Edoardo said, we have no credibility on this. And this is, once again, a big issue. Still on the daily life, social infrastructure, Luca spoke about it. People are waiting for social infrastructures. People are looking for housing. People are looking for energy efficiency, to spend less on energy. And on all of this, we need and we can do more than we are doing. And we can do it on the local projects. Local projects means small projects or medium projects. And this, and I will come back on that just a little bit later. This cannot be done at the broad vision. We need to delegate. We need the Juncker plan to be enhanced, to be implemented at the local level, and this cannot be done at the global level. So we need to have a kind of delegation. Second question, did we change our vision of risks? The answer is maybe. Why? Because we are still thinking about the risk in the short term while we are investing in long terms. So the risk will come before the outcomes of the long-term investments. So this is one of the paradoxes that we have to deal with. And for this, we need to get out from this vision of the risk. It is quite reasonable to have a vision of risk because we are just getting out of the economic crisis, of the financial crisis. But to get an example which is not in the Juncker plan, is there any reason for the development bank, which are lending money, making loans to developing countries, to have the same ratio than commercial banks in terms of bail-free? Not, of course. When you make loans to developing countries, of course it is more risky than making loans for customers in a commercial bank. But, once again, the same rule applies to everyone. And we have difficulties for this. So we need to change our vision of risk. We need not only to say that we are taking more risk, but I know that EIB, we are asking, all our countries in Europe are asking EIB to take more risk. But are the shareholders of EIB saying the same thing when they are discussing about when they are on the board of the EIB? I'm not completely sure. I'm sure that sometimes they say, oh, I'm a shareholder of EIB, so please be careful on this. But in the meantime, you have the government saying, well, we are looking for EIB to take more risk. So we need to be more clear on that point. And the third question is, are we using all the tools enabled by the Juncker plan to make it the success that we are looking for? The answer is not really. We are using a lot of them, but we are not using all of them. And I was very pleased to hear Luca speaking about platform. Platform, as he said, it's very simple. What is the issue? The issue, we have projects in different countries about the same problems, the same, let's say, digital, let's say, infrastructure, whatever. There are small projects. It costs a lot to do it one by one. So we propose to gather them in a platform and then to have a kind of guarantee or investment for this. To implement it, we need to have a form of delegation. We need the Juncker plan to be delegated in a way from the Commission to EIB, from EIB to NPBIs. It is important to have this kind of delegation if we want to implement it at the local level. We cannot have a word in a way and say, well, in management it's important to delegate, while in practical terms we do not delegate sometimes in financial aspects. So it is important to use the platform and to use it very simple. Another example, we have a tool called Margaret. Margaret Fund was created 4 years ago. We need to develop it in the future. It is a European fund. It is funded by the different member states via Caisse de Dépôts or Cassa and whatever, and KfW. We need to have a new Margaret for this. And I'm sure that we can do that. So to conclude, I will conclude by a word which was coming back from 1992. In 1992, Clinton was elected president in the USA. And his motto was to say to George Bush, father, it's economic idiot. And now the answer in Europe is people idiot. Thank you.
Grazie, thank you very much. Professor Messori, vorrei fare una domanda da economista per introdurre il suo dibattito che riguarda l'effetto. All'inizio abbiamo detto che l'Europa soffre, lo sappiamo, in questa fase di un problema di bassa crescita e di un problema di deflazione o comunque basso livello dei prezzi. Il piano Juncker è o no, secondo lei, in grado di dare all'economia europea quella, come dire, quella sferzata, quella scossa che ci serve per uscire da vari anni di recessione?
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti. Non ho una risposta semplice a questa domanda, ma ho purtroppo una risposta articolata, nel senso che il piano Juncker, visto nell'ottica che mi invitava ad assumere il nostro coordinatore, ha due punti di forza e un punto di debolezza rilevante. I due punti di forza sono forse banali e sono già stati sottolineati. È l'unico progetto di investimento europeo che è a disposizione oggi e quindi io credo che questo sia un fatto molto positivo. Noi abbiamo l'esigenza, anche per le ragioni che cercherò di offrirvi tra qualche minuto, abbiamo bisogno di un piano europeo. Il piano Juncker è l'unico progetto di investimento europeo che abbiamo a disposizione. Il secondo punto di forza, che è stato evocato dal Ministro Padoan e sviluppato da Mario Nava, è che il piano Juncker è un progetto di investimento con finanziamento pubblico-privato e questo mi sembra un altro punto di forza rilevante. Il problema che mi rende, come dire, cauto nel dare una valutazione su un progetto che va ancora realizzato per larga parte è che proprio questa caratteristica del piano Juncker di essere finanziato su base pubblica-privata fa emergere una debolezza. Il fondo che dovrebbe come dire, consentire la realizzazione di questo leverage rispetto alla banca di investimento europea e poi ai progetti privati di investimento, intanto funziona in quanto la selezione dei progetti di investimento non avviene su base nazionale. D'altro canto però questo fondo, per poter realizzare davvero il leverage ratio che è previsto dal piano Juncker, necessita anche di apporti pubblico-privati, ma questi apporti pubblico-privati, come è evidenziato dalle prime risultanze empiriche, tendono ad essere non conferite al fondo, ma essere a lato del fondo, e cioè essere utilizzate sotto la clausola che il fondo selezioni gli investimenti appartenenti allo Stato membro che conferisce il fondo. Questo fa saltare la composizione pubblico-privata e quindi io credo che questo sia un elemento di forte debolezza del piano Juncker. Questo però mi porta in qualche misura a, come dire, ribadire un punto essenziale. Vedo qui che ci sono alcune slide che avevo preparato e forse vale la pena che nel breve tempo concessomi le utilizzi e quindi forse perché la questione che mi è stata posta appunto da Dino Pesole mi consente di ribadire il punto essenziale della sua domanda, e cioè che noi effettivamente abbiamo un bisogno per una crescita strutturale dell'area dell'euro di disporre di un piano di investimento pubblico-privato a livello europeo e quindi la domanda rimane aperta se il piano Juncker sia sufficiente o meno a questo scopo. Il problema è che oltre agli aspetti problematici del piano Juncker che ho cercato di evidenziare, il triangolo, i tre dots che sono stati evocati nel corso della nostra discussione, cioè piano Juncker, Banking Union e Capital Market Union, pongono un secondo problema. noi riusciremo davvero in Europa a realizzare un progetto europeo di investimento fondato su un finanziamento pubblico-privato solo se ristruttureremo profondamente il mercato finanziario europeo. E da questo punto di vista io sono un po' forse meno ottimista di relatori che mi hanno preceduto, perché penso che Banking Union ci faccia percorrere un pezzo di cammino in questa direzione, ma ci ponga anche problemi che solo la Capital Market Union potrebbe risolverci. Allora cercherei molto brevemente di argomentare queste mie considerazioni. Sul primo punto credo di poter essere molto rapido perché è abbastanza banale. Un'area così forte come l'area dell'euro, che rimane una delle aree economiche prevalenti a livello internazionale, non può pensare di fondare un cammino di crescita strutturalmente solido basandosi sulle esportazioni nette. Ci sono varie ragioni anche congiunturali che come dire, militano a favore della mia tesi, per esempio le difficoltà di una parte dei paesi emergenti, il ruolo diverso che dopo la crisi finanziaria e reale internazionale hanno assunto gli Stati Uniti nel commercio internazionale. Però mi sembra che l'argomentazione decisiva è che non è pensabile che una delle due aree economiche che rimangono più forti al mondo possa fondare una crescita strutturale sulle esportazioni nette, su un saldo positivo nel rapporto esportazioni-importazioni. Se così è allora necessario sviluppare una delle condizioni necessarie, ancorché non sufficienti, è che si irrobustisca la domanda aggregata sul mercato interno europeo. Vi sono però altre due ragioni che portano, come dire, alla necessità di un progetto europeo di investimenti, che sono ragioni forse un pochino più sottili di quella che vi ho appena offerto. La prima è che la path dependence che caratterizza gli Stati membri dell'area dell'euro impedisce di ritenere possibile e praticabile un meccanismo one size fit all. È evidente che one size doesn't fit all e quindi noi abbiamo bisogno di sviluppare complementarietà tra Stati membri senza pretendere una convergenza verso un modello unico. D'altro canto però noi non siamo né in un regime di cambi fissi né in un'unione monetaria in cui vi siano già meccanismi robusti di trasferimento o di risk sharing. E quindi, accanto al fatto che non possiamo convergere su un modello unico, dobbiamo tener conto del fatto che non possiamo essere troppo diversi dal punto di vista della competitività. Quindi deve esserci una soglia di divari di competitività che non può essere superata se non vogliamo cadere in instabilità finanziaria e reale. Allora, se così è, se abbiamo questo problema di un equilibrio tra competitività e complementarietà tra Stati membri, è evidente che, come dire, non abbiamo soltanto un problema generico di irrobustire la domanda aggregata nel mercato interno, ma abbiamo anche un problema di, come dire, correggere le asimmetrie in termini di divari di competitività e affermare la complementarietà. Per fare questo noi abbiamo appunto bisogno di un progetto europeo di investimento possibilmente asimmetrico, nel senso che nell'allocazione dei progetti di investimento si privilegiano gli Stati membri periferici rispetto a quelli centrali. Ma se siamo arrivati a questo punto e, come dire, il mio ragionamento spero che vi abbia convinti che almeno questa tesi possa essere oggetto di discussione, allora residua un problema abbastanza ovvio, ma se noi vogliamo sviluppare un progetto di investimento europeo con finanziamento pubblico-privato, naturalmente dovremo pensare alla utilizzazione di risorse pubbliche, e qui si apre la questione se la base per la costruzione dei leverage ratio del piano Juncker sia sufficientemente robusta o meno, che è un argomento che non vorrei affrontare in questa sede, e resiede un secondo punto che invece è l'argomento su cui vorrei spendere ancora qualche riflessione, che è quello di come reperire risorse dal lato privato, cioè quali possano essere le fonti di finanziamento dal lato privato, e se i mercati finanziari, l'attuale configurazione dei mercati finanziari europei ci consenta di essere sufficientemente ottimisti a questo riguardo. Allora, è qui che, come dire, io vedo i punti di forza e i punti di debolezza del processo di Banking Union. Per fugare ogni dubbio, io convengo con quanti hanno già affermato che Banking Union sia stata la riforma forse più importante per l'area dell'euro e in generale per l'Unione Europea dopo la costituzione dell'area monetaria unica. Quindi non è in discussione la rilevanza di questo progetto. Non è neppure in discussione il fatto che Banking Union sia stata in grado di superare una legacy estremamente negativa della crisi internazionale a livello finanziario, e cioè la segmentazione nazionale dei mercati bancari. Senza Banking Union noi non saremmo riusciti a porre un argine a questa segmentazione, di cui persistono ancora tracce consistenti, e non saremmo riusciti a, come dire, mettere almeno un granellino di sabbia nella interdipendenza viziosa tra crisi dei debiti sovrani e crisi di liquidità o di insolvenza del settore bancario. Da come è evoluta l'unione bancaria ne possiamo però desumere anche un'altra conseguenza, che non è una good news soprattutto per gli Stati membri periferici dell'area dell'euro e in particolare per l'Italia, e cioè che, data la costruzione del meccanismo unico di risoluzione e in particolare dato il rapporto nell'ambito del meccanismo unico di risoluzione tra processo di bail-in e costruzione del fondo unico di risoluzione, è venuta meno la possibilità per le banche europee di colmare lo strutturale funding gap che ha caratterizzato il periodo precedente la crisi internazionale mediante l'emissione di titoli propri, di obbligazioni. Le obbligazioni, non soltanto quelle subordinate, ma dal 1 gennaio 2016 tutte le obbligazioni, anche quelle plain vanilla, saranno un prodotto che potrei dire quasi un prodotto strutturato, nel senso che avranno un'opzione implicita, saranno molto difficili da apprezzare perché, come dire, questa attività finanziaria incorporerà direttamente la rischiosità dinamica dell'emittente, e quindi, come dire, diventerà molto più problematico riprodurre quel ruolo che è stato tipico per gran parte degli Stati membri dell'area dell'euro e che ha configurato un peculiare bancocentrismo nel nostro mercato interno e nel nostro mercato finanziario. Allora, se così è, e vado alla conclusione, noi cosa ne possiamo dedurre? Ne possiamo dedurre che Banking Union ha superato almeno parzialmente quella segmentazione che avrebbe impedito di trovare risorse finanziarie private per finanziare un progetto di investimento europeo, ma ci ha posto un secondo problema. Le banche continueranno ad avere un ruolo importante nel mercato finanziario europeo, ma non potranno avere più quel ruolo così cruciale come avevano avuto prima della crisi finanziaria internazionale e della crisi europea. Allora, cosa dobbiamo fare? Cosa possiamo fare? Beh, la risposta più ovvia che viene alla mente è incominciamo a sviluppare un mercato dei corporate bonds. Il problema è che la nostra realtà è che soprattutto nell'area periferica dell'Unione monetaria il mercato dei corporate bonds è molto sottile e quindi con problemi di liquidità. Inoltre molti Stati membri dell'area dell'euro sono strutturati su piccola e media impresa. Questo è un caso particolarmente rilevante per l'Italia, in cui addirittura potremmo parlare di una strutturazione su piccolissima e piccola impresa. Allora, come possiamo contemperare l'esigenza di dare più spazio a un mercato dei corporate bonds con la struttura dimensionale del nostro apparato produttivo? Qui io spero davvero che il processo di Capital Market Union ci venga in soccorso, nel senso che si potrebbe configurare una soluzione fondata su un utilizzo intelligente dei processi di securitization, che consenta di, come dire, aggregare senza un vincolo immediato di mercato le emissioni di bond da parte di piccole e piccolo-medie imprese, e che, come dire, attraverso questa aggregazione consenta poi ai veicoli speciali di emettere bond utilizzando le possibili economie di scala. Grazie.
Grazie professor Messori. Dottor Giorgio Chiarion Casoni, anche alla luce di queste interessanti osservazioni del professor Messori, le vorrei chiedere: lei ha sostenuto di recente che dal 2007 il rallentamento degli investimenti in Europa è stato pari al 15-20% e quindi la priorità numero uno resta appunto quella di rilanciare gli investimenti. Del piano Juncker stiamo parlando oggi. Le vorrei chiedere se secondo lei prima o dopo riuscirà a riemergere nel dibattito pubblico europeo anche l'ipotesi di provare a scorporare una parte, una quota degli investimenti al calcolo del deficit, cioè se si può ipotizzare una sorta di golden rule nel futuro prossimo, non prossimo proprio tanto lontano. Grazie.
L'ultima domanda in l'ultima domanda in particolare è molto divinatoria. Vorrei lanciare qualche uccello per gli aeruspici, ma non ho purtroppo le colombe. No, però il punto secondo me fondamentale, e penso che sia stato anche i diversi relatori oggi l'hanno evidenziato, che quello che ha fatto il piano Juncker è aver riportato il tema dell'investimento sul tavolo della politica dopo diversi anni, ed è ancora in modo più importante perché l'investimento è un tema nazionale, storicamente per i trattati europei e tutto. Quindi mentre la Commissione e l'Europa ha sempre sostenuto l'investimento, ma a livello settoriale, nei progetti transfrontalieri oppure nelle piccole e medie imprese oppure nella ricerca e innovazione cooperativa, non ha mai avuto un tema così ampio, ad ampio raggio, come l'ha fatto col piano Juncker. Col piano Juncker il problema non è più diventato dove investire cross border, ma è tutto l'investimento, è quello il vero problema europeo ed è quello che va toccato, e toccando anche temi e settori che non sono tipicamente europei. Edoardo ha parlato prima dell'infrastruttura sociale, parliamo di ospedali, asili, scuole, parliamo anche di infrastrutture locali e di medio e piccolo raggio, ed è qua che anche, come spiegava Laurent, la cooperazione con le casse nazionali è un elemento fondamentale, ed è vero che se vogliamo portare l'investimento a livello locale e soprattutto portare l'investimento privato a livello locale ci vogliono strumenti finanziari e ci vogliono volontà politica sia a livello locale ma anche a livello nostro, a livello europeo, ma a livello di cooperazione con le banche nazionali, di voler delegare di più a livello delle casse la possibilità di finanziare. E da qua la necessità di piattaforme di investimento. C'è stato io vorrei anche la dimensione temporale, io penso, anche se non ho tanto tempo, è molto importante, penso noi partiamo da una situazione in cui appunto dicevo, a livello europeo l'investimento è arrivato adesso, il piano Juncker comincia adesso, le banche, le casse nazionali, alcune come KfW o CDC in Francia hanno avuto investimenti ad ampio raggio per diversi anni. Cassa Depositi ha cominciato più con le municipalità, ma adesso si sta espandendo pure, quindi diciamo il tempo, anche come sottolineava Edoardo, è un po' tiranno, ma allo stesso tempo dobbiamo sfruttare il momento adesso per portare sfruttare questo momento per facilitare questa cooperazione. Però non è facile perché stiamo parlando di istituti, la BEI, non so, c'è un bilancio di 500 miliardi, KfW è analogo, Cassa Depositi 400, cioè parliamo di istituzioni enormi e che cercare di farle muovere non è sempre agevole. Quello che sta provando la Commissione è di dare gli stimoli giusti in questo momento. Il piano Juncker è uno di questi, ci sono anche le regole degli aiuti di Stato, ci sono altre politiche, abbiamo visto tutte le varie Capital Market Union, la Banking Union, ma vorrei anche sottolineare tutte quelle che sono le politiche settoriali. Questa settimana la Commissione ha pubblicato la comunicazione sulla Digital Market Union, lo abbiamo fatto sulla Energy Union. Se vogliamo sviluppare l'investimento in questi settori non può prescindere da riforme settoriali che siano fatte sia a livello europeo che a livello nazionale. L'altro elemento per rilanciare l'investimento, spesso ci si focalizza solo sulla parte finanziaria, cioè l'offerta di finanziamenti, e qua c'è spesso una grande confusione tra quello, in inglese diciamo la differenza tra funding e financing. Noi stiamo aumentando i sistemi di financing di banche, assicurazioni, attraverso Capital Market Union, la BEI, le casse, che sono capaci di provare di fornire finanziamenti. Detto questo, questi finanziamenti non sono finanziamenti a fondo perduto, ma sono prestiti che devono essere restituiti. Quindi ci vuole dalla parte degli Stati membri una politica di bilancio che privilegi questi investimenti, se no nessuna banca prende seriamente i progetti che non hanno una capacità di rifinanziamento durante gli anni. Se facciamo il PPP in Europa, vediamo la situazione oggi è che le ultime statistiche nel 2015, nella prima metà dell'anno, siamo a metà, già in un non molto ricco panorama di progetti a partenariato pubblico-privato nel 2014-2015, per il momento ne stiamo finanziando la metà, molto pochi. Il maggiore paese è la Turchia con investimenti in ospedali. Benissimo, ma allora significa che c'è un problema anche di impegno, penso a livello nazionale, nella volontà vera di voler finanziare questi finanziamenti attraverso un partenariato pubblico e privato. È vero che non si fa solo attraverso PPP, perché ci sono le corporate, come diceva Edoardo e Luca, ma è anche vero che se vogliamo avere un panorama più ampio di finanziamento, non solo nei prossimi 2 o 3 anni, perché il piano Juncker è solo l'inizio di un processo, ma se vogliamo farlo più a lungo termine vanno ricreate delle situazioni che facilitino questa possibilità. Alcuni paesi come il Regno Unito, con l'Olanda, parzialmente la Francia, hanno ancora un mercato molto buono. Paesi come il nostro sono la situazione è più incerta, non si capisce se prima di tutto se le leggi facilitano la cosa, anche nell'interesse del tempo, la facilità di completare un progetto non è sempre presente, ma e soprattutto dal livello anche di bilancio pubblico vanno allocate delle risorse per questi finanziamenti, e senza di questi non c'è piano Juncker che funzioni. Penso che...
sì, bravissimo, anzi pure più sintetico, così diamo un po' più di spazio alla nostra, anche per cortesia, anzi mi scuso perché dovevo fare un'inversione, la cavalleria non c'è più. Vorrei introdurre l'ultimo intervento di Carlotta De Franceschi che ci porta, e questo è molto interessante, anche a conclusione di questa mattinata così intensa, il punto di vista di un action tank, si chiama così il suo? Intanto ci spieghi esattamente che fate e qual è il punto di vista su una tematica, anche alla luce di della sua lunghissima esperienza in questo campo, vedo molto dettagliata. Spinga? Ok, ci dobbiamo alternare.
No, allora, per il beneficio degli stranieri parlerò in inglese e ho anche una grande sfida perché il mio intervento ci divide dal pranzo, quindi sono sull'orlo della... Yeah, it's first of all, thanks for inviting me, and thanks to Paolo Garona in particular. It was very interesting to follow all your speeches and comments. The thing is, the world completely changed all the paradigms, at least the financial worlds, and therefore all the economies after the Lehman crisis, right? The European economies were dragged into the worst crisis since 1929. And it seems to me that a bit like Roosevelt did in 1929, or at least Action thinks, that it's a bit like Roosevelt did in 1929, he came out with a New Deal, right? And the New Deal was the 3 R's, which were recovery, reform, and relief, right? And it seems to me that just having one arm from Europe, so just have a framework that only encompasses investments, is probably not enough. So if you really believe in, that Europe should jump back on the driving seat of the international competitiveness and the international competition, we should probably do something a little broader. So have a framework that encompasses vision, investments and reforms, not just investments themselves. And the framework I would like to suggest here is literally a New Deal, a European New Deal, and let's call it New Age. Age for access, G for growth, and E for employment. In terms of vision, we all talk about, in very finance words, we keep on talking about growth, but I think it would be more interesting to have to start a political dialogue or debate around a new word, which is prosperity. Because I think people there are a lot of tensions. We have now terrorism, and terrorism sometimes it stems out of social tensions. And I think people really don't care, everyday people, about growth, but they care that they can, have a better quality of life or have the same quality of life that they had before the crisis. And that's why I think it's important that we pass from a framework that is very much a finance framework to a more political framework. So vision, by changing the concept of growth with the one of prosperity, and by changing the concept of financial stability with the one of financial sustainability. And this is in terms of vision. And in terms of quote-unquote reforms, right? When I say age, I mean, we like to play a bit with the words, so we are better in developing a storyteller. But it's age stands for A as access. We just moved from an old economy. We're moving more and more toward a dematerialized economy, right? So access is better access to data, finance, and to a new economy that is gonna really represents both an opportunity and a threat for policymakers. An opportunity because it's going to be cheaper, faster, easier to stem innovation. It's going to be, it's going to be easier to provide social services with relatively cheaper costs. I'm talking about healthcare or education. It's going to be cheaper to sell products or develop and sell products. It's going to be policymakers have the opportunity to reduce the cost of families and so on and so forth. It represents a threat because this new economy is going to destroy a lot of jobs. So we should really rethink our industrial policies so that we capture this opportunity faster than basically we create more jobs faster than they're actually destroyed. And how we go about it. So growth and employment, right? Growth in two ways. Usually when we talk about, and there is a famous economist here, when we talk about productivity factor, right, and especially in Italy, it gets really ideological because we talk a lot about labor, and when it comes down to talk about finance, I think especially in Europe, we don't quite have the right approach. And we went after the Lehman crisis, policymakers reacted so badly to the crisis that they actually reformed the whole financial world so that now it's disempowered to actually support companies and support their ability to create jobs. And if I'm thinking about a reform agenda around finance, I'm talking about going after the overreaching banking policy, so adjusting the banking policy that actually went a little too far with its regulation. And it's really hurting the ability of banks to serve the real economy. Second, it should focus on pension funds, and despite the whole storytelling, we should really look at European level to address their governance, the regulation, and the competencies of people who are sitting in the boards and actually making investment decisions in a zero interest rate and highly challenging environment. Third, insurances, right? If we're talking here about equity investments, long-term investments, right? How can we have a Solvency II policy that impairs insurances to actually participate in the equity capital markets or even in general private equity world, right? And fourth, we should really change the way we look at taxation. We should discriminate between long-term and short-term investments, as they do in the US. And this is regarding growth is two things for me. It's finance and it's an entrepreneurship, because the capital allows the entrepreneur to actually create work, create jobs, right? Entrepreneurship is one of the most intangible and important factors of our economies. Every time a company dies, basically every time a company dies, and the entrepreneur is impaired to start back his company, we actually lost a big asset. So somebody in the prior panel mentioned that we are looking at harmonizing the insolvency regimes across Europe. And policymakers should really pay attention to design the proper incentives so that, first of all, it's cheaper and easier for companies that are viable to actually restructure their liabilities. For entrepreneurs that are actually, for companies that are meant to go bankrupt, to have a fast and cheaper process. And in general, to make it an easier regime to turn around companies. And eventually, employment. Employment, I'm saying something a bit obvious here, but when you look at the statistic office, right, it looks like all jobs are pretty much equal. And that's not the case. They're not equal in content, not equal in compensation, but more importantly, they're not equal in the value they add to society. If you look at what Moretti from Berkeley says, right, every skilled job create five regular jobs. So our policymakers should very much focus in attracting or anyway building industries and companies in high value added areas. And therefore, all our Juncker plan or investment plans should be focused on, taking more and more a role in any infrastructure that is supporting research, that is supporting human capital, and is actually supporting innovation. So this is the framework for what I call, let's say, set policy, vision, policy reforms, and 3 investments, right? If we have a whole paradigm, we should also review the role of domestic development banks. How? First of all, a lot of if I look at CDP, that is actually the bank I know the most, or I know better, right? They should improve their ability to, and maybe just reviewing all their financing model, but they should review their ability to invest in equity and to increase their private-to-partnership participation. They should really help their local governments to select projects in these areas I just mentioned. So, infrastructure to spur innovation, to, support a better human capital development and research. And last, if you look at the way our development banks work, they work very much at national level, but they're very pervasive when it comes down to local level. I think Edoardo mentioned, obviously, the development banks, they support the single cities or commons when they have to go about developing roads, schools, hospitals, so on and so forth. And that's very important, especially very important once the sovereign spread widened, and it was very hard for banks to serve these type of projects. But these are really, even if they're very useful, these projects are not really strategic, are not really part of, if we really want to be back to the driving seat, we should wonder, what is strategic and what is not. And really put, I wouldn't say maybe too aggressively, almost put all our eggs in one basket. And so I think development banks should really rethink their role to be really, really more strategic and focus on projects that are, the make or break of a country. And therefore work very much at national level, yes, but kind of retrocede from all these smaller projects and focus on big metropolitan areas. I mean, there is a big kind of trend in the world, and I think Italy is not really catching it, of developing big metropolitan areas as innovation hubs. Like it happens in Berlin, it happened in New York, it happened in London. And I can't really pick up 2 or 3 cities where the government, together with the leading development bank, really work hard to make it a center of excellence, that can compete across the globe. And so, just to summarize, I think it's great that this government really started with an icon of cambia verso and said, okay, let's change direction. But that should be just for the first step. Then, and it cannot be just the Prime Minister. I think all together, the development banks, together with our European representatives and together, with the government, should really envision a new type of future with a completely new paradigmas, vision, reforms, and investment arms, and never look back. And I think, as I see that the average age here is kind of older, and I know the youngest one, I think you guys owe it to our generation. Thank you.
Grazie. Molte grazie per queste ultime osservazioni molto interessanti. Mi sembra molto, molto bella quando lei diceva c'è bisogno di visione per cambiare il concetto della crescita. È esattamente quello che manca, perché mi sembra che magari ne discuteremo in un'altra occasione. Riporta sul tema del deficit di politica sostanzialmente in Europa in questo momento. Bene, noi abbiamo come i treni che partono in ritardo ma poi recuperano sul tragitto. Le Frecce Rosse abbiamo recuperato 20 minuti. Buon pranzo a tutti.